Alright guys, welcome back to another layout update. This is probably a little bit overdue, but hey, it's been a while coming. We got some rolling stock purchases and a couple other purchases from Atlanta Train Show and some interesting stuff on the layout. So as always, let's jump right on into it. Alright, so first thing I'll point out to y'all, I was not planning on doing this until after the 2024 Sierra Convention. I had the Decatur layout tours, the whole replacing all the module frames on the Peninsula, but I decided to go ahead and at least do the engine terminal module because one of the things I would like to do for 2024 is have the layout open for tour, and if we're going to do that, I would really like to have the tracks on the engine terminal so when we swap out engines, we can store them on the tracks off the turntable instead of having to take them in and out of the display case. Just make it easier, make it more streamlined, whatnot. So I went ahead and started redoing that. Basically, the gist of the construction, and I had this in here because I was getting dimensions to have the panels made for it that are gonna have toggles for track power and the like. But basically it's thin Luan plywood and then 1x2 or 1x3 bracing the inside, and then it comes up. So this is light years lighter, way lighter than the module frame that's in there now because it's all made of 1x4s. I wanted to be able to do really lightweight construction like this. I just kind of tried it with this, and I was not using the right materials, a couple other things. Now I've got enough practice that I'm rather impressed with the way this turned out. And like the only thing that I really messed up on this, well, two things I messed up. I had 3/4 inch ply in here, and that was too tall, which that wasn't a design flaw. I thought it was 3/4 when it was 1x2, so I swapped that out, and then I ripped the 1/8 inch Luan plywood into 8-inch strips, thinking I wanted it thick, and then I came back and checked the height from the existing frame structure up to about where it is, and about everywhere except for right here where you start getting into the hills, I need about only 6 inches. So really the only major thing left to do on this is you can see where I started right here. I cut that down to 6. I just got to go all the way around the rest of the way and cut it down to 6. So but after that, the nice thing, since I screwed the risers together, I didn't use glue on any of this stuff, it's all screws, is theoretically and technically I can disconnect all the wiring, unscrew the risers from the old frame, and literally lift the sub-row bed, track, switch machines, wiring, everything all in one big kit and caboodle off of the old over and plop it down on this thing. So technically I can do it. Like that's what this is for. 3/4 block where the track comes off into staging. I'm not quite ready to do that yet. Like I said, I'm going to get the fascia panels made that go on this and get all the holes cut out for those. So I'm going to have one right here to turn track power on and off for all the roundhouse tracks. Going to have another one right there, and that's going to be trigger buttons because eventually I want to add sound effects to the engine terminal. And it is you press a button and you hear a whole coal loading sequence, and you press another button and you hear a water loading sequence. So when you're running engines through the service terminal, you actually got to wait until the sequence is over to move them on to the next servicing station. But that, and then move the UP5 plug right there, a couple of throttle pockets, and then a lot of this space is going to be taken up by the metal switch plates from CTC parts that I'm going to use to simulate unlocking the mainline turnouts for local controls, because I mentioned this before, but just because re-mentioning it for the sake of re-mentioning it, this whole layout on the mainline anyways is going to have a signaling system. I got about half the hardware already, which is one of the other things I'm going to do towards the end of this year. Is I'm going to start buying signaling and the rest of the hardware I need and boards and everything to actually do it. So that's the first big thing. Other thing is evidenced by all these. I am going through another round of parsing down the collection. It was getting to the point that all the staging tracks were full, most of my boxes were full, and I still have yet some of the cars I actually need for the Industries on this layout. A couple more 2-bay covered hoppers for the Anchor Hawk and Glass that was in Lancaster, is in Lancaster. It was there on the rail thing, is still there on the rail thing, and obviously will be there on that. And then for this spur right here, which is going to be a pulpwood. So I'm going to get some flat cars, and I'm going to modify them based on Southern design, but to come up. So that's 6 or 8 cars. And I have accumulated a whole bunch of Athearn and Roundhouse smooth side and rib 70-tone 4-bay hoppers. And of course I thought I was going to get around to repainting and decaling on all these cars. And as the years have gone by, almost a decade for some of these kits, they still haven't been touched. And I basically just essentially realized, you know what? I am not going to get to this. This is ridiculous. They're taking up space. So I have decided to replace most of them with the Atlas ribbed 70-tonners, which I'll get to that in a minute, because there is also some new rolling stock. So those are all stuff that's going. I'm parsing down the collection and just doing that process. The other thing I will mention over here, and I almost forgot to drag it out. 2 things in this area. The first is, if we look at the underside right here, I'm going to have to get down on the ground, and hopefully I don't give you guys a horrible view. I got the, you can barely see it, barely see the Accutane cable right there. But I got the first remote mount kit in for one of the switches on this. So the kit comes with the side mount bracket, and it comes with, where did it go? I got to find it again. So I'm good. Oh, there, it's hiding behind the other switch machine. So if I can get this in here where you can see it, and you can't see it, that thing right there. And that is the other side. So it's wire in a Teflon tube, and then you've got a brass tube and another wire on top that do that. And the idea being that when you switch the tortoise, the accutating arm right there transfers the motion to that wire rod. It goes through the rod and lines the point. So I got one mounted right there. Obviously that is the tortoise for this turnout. And then I've got one more remote mount kit, and it is going to be for this one. So I'm going to have that plate underneath the turnout again right over there. Sorry, my finger's in the way right there. And then I'm going to have that accutator wire come out, curve over, and I'm going to mount the tortoise and the side bracket probably right about in here somewhere. And the reason for doing that is leave me enough room to actually get to the terminal blocks into here, which you can see I already have labeled, that are going to be for the 8-wire leads coming off of the Tauruses. I don't know if I will use both of the attached circuits. I know I'm going to use one for frog power. The other one normally would be, in case of a signal system, for feeding into signals or line side signals. This is staging. The computer is going to handle it, so I might not use it, but I'm going to wire up all 8 leads, because if I ever build another layout, depending on where I put them, I might use all 8 then. So that took me, I started working on that. I got a little frustrated, so I just let it sit for probably a good 4 months. Now, the last night I finally just said, okay, this is one of the things that I don't have to have, but it would really, really, really be handy to have if I'm going to have this open as a layout tour. So I need to get these these machines mounted. So it was really slow going through it the first time because I hadn't done it right through the instructions, but then it was like, okay, this makes sense. So I just sat down, about an hour I had it finished up and tested it with leads off a 12-volt power supply. Still needs to be hooked in because they're here. Again, this is on a slide out to get into the workshop, and the DS64 that runs them is right there. That's for the east end. That is for the west end. So it's for the ones all the way down there. And of course, those are on and they're working. So that is that. The other thing, as far as the layout, I almost forgot this. I am very, very, very excited to show y'all the backdrop that my mom had painted about a year before we moved down here, which of course she passed just before we did. So the backdrop she painted for the old version of the 4x8, which has been replaced by this, is officially mounted. I was debating on where to put this thing because she painted it, so I didn't want to put it anywhere where we have to like cut a bunch of openings in it and everything. And I wanted it someplace where, because on the old version 4x8, the track did go through it right there. That's where there's that big hole cut out. But I also wanted to put it someplace where you could convincingly bring the scenery up to match it. I had thought about this side of the peninsula and maybe using it as a hole over there, but it's like, okay, I got a little filler piece on each side. I want to put it in a spot where I will have to touch it the absolute least. That ended up being right here. So Rich and I have gotten, along with that, have gotten the horizontal headers for the framework for the valence up on both sides, all the way through there. And then, of course, we got this mounted. So obviously, I did have to figure out how to attach it. I did go ahead and put 4 screw holes in it, but there's a countersunk. They're nice and flush. All the other screw holes on the layout, on the backdrop, are of course going to be covered over with mud, sanded smooth, and then primed and painted and everything else. These, I found a local artist that's going to help me with my backdrop because, I mean, I can't paint this good, folks. I'm not too diddly squat, but I don't want to try and paint something basic and then have this look really, really good and everything else look like trash. I want the backdrops on the layout to kind of do this justice. So the local artist, she's going to help me, and basically we're going to take this, the tone of this, and use it for something else. But anyways, everything else, like I said, screw holes will be mudded and taped and sanded to this because she painted it. I want minimal amount of damage as possible. I just got 4 screws in the 4 corners to hold it. There, you see one over there. I got one at the bottom, right down there, and then of course this one and one down there. And these, I'm just going to tell you, just paint them so that way if we have to have this come down, I don't want to have to scratch up the backdrop a whole bunch trying to figure out where the screws are. I want this to just remain as untouched as possible. So, and it fits the topography of Ohio well enough because, again, Hocking did essentially run in the Hocking Valley. 90% of its length from Columbus, virtually all the way towards the Ohio River. But the idea is extend that, and of course that meant we got the verticals put in over there. So that's most of it as far as work on the layout. Obviously, we've been doing some wiring, so Ron has come through and been replacing connections underneath here where the modules actually go down, and then of course the lift out with Anderson power poles. And then the other thing we've been doing is just a lot of running. Again, open house, I've told the guys, look, this is the thing you do with the layout before you start operations. Once you get enough of the main line in to run, you run stuff out of the bounds of what you normally would. So, I mean, 85-foot cars, auto rack spline cars, all this oddball stuff that you're never going to run. Test the layout to a limit well outside of what you are going to regularly use or what will be brought over. And then when you're using it like regular, you ain't going to have any problems because you're going to be inside the maximum that can take. So that's like one of the things that I've used to test this whole lot was my brass 482 Mountain. And it kept derailing in one spot. Well, eventually that came down to I need to replace the spring in the truck. I needed to add more paint, layers of paint and fingernail polish to insulate the frame from the pilot truck because it was shorting out. But eventually I got to this point where it runs through here pretty smooth. That's my finickiest engine. So if that runs smooth, basically everything else modern production is going to do pretty darn good. And if that does good, then hey, I can even get brass on here and know pretty much it's going to do good. So, so we've just been testing mode. Rich and Aaron have brought their stuff over when we've run it. I've run auto racks through here. We've run modern stuff through here, etc., etc. I am going to throw in one clip at the end of the video, and I almost forgot about this because I was like, oh, I had the clip. I don't need it. The other little mini project we started was replacing this whole thing, but I'm not going to get into that because, like I said, I have it as a in progress clip, and I'll add that on to the end of this video. So, yeah. Anyways, before I let you all jump into that, last thing to cover is a little bit of new rolling stock. So, a couple of not buys, basically long-term leasing rolling stock from a friend of mine who's focusing on the modern era, and he had some 50 stuff left over, and it was like, okay, hey, it fits mine, you want to run it over here? And he's like, yeah, sure. So there's 4 or 5 freight cars. I think the others are at the club or they're in the totes down there, so I can't get them out. But 2 of them that are out, a couple of more reefers. We got a Hormel, which I didn't have one of these before, and we got a Dabiq Packing URTX. I don't remember the brand on that one. That one's a P2K, I'm pretty sure. Oh, and then the one other car I brought off him was this. So I already got 2 Penske Gons and some Penske box cars. It is not going to stay in Pennsylvania. It is going to be stripped and repainted into Hawking. Basically, it's going to be a lower capacity metal one, like the real ones they got that were built on the early 20s. And the idea is, hey, 3 years have gone by. It's pretty much been demoted from mainline service, and it is pretty much just running on, company use and that sort of thing. Which also, it's in a line of equipment that more equipment that I'm going to go ahead and sell off. I just got to find the boxes. So, speaking of equipment, we have a swivel around here, and we will have a look at the stuff I purchased at Atlanta, Georgia. So, obviously, you guys know the drill. I got a couple of clips. Eventually, Will or I will get that posted. But it was also a scope out. It was a last minute thing. I kind of half jokingly, we knew it was coming up. I kind of half jokingly suggested to Rich and Grant, gee, maybe we could carpool. And it's like, this is a week before the show. So it's like, okay, I suggest it, but in all honesty, there's a little thing called planning. So you know what? This probably ain't going to happen. And it was like, well, okay, just for grants, let's say we do it. Yeah, sure, we'll bring grants. And it actually ended up working out. I really did kind of need to be at the museum that day for some stuff, but I decided to go for a couple of reasons. One was the show is on the Infinite Energy Center, so on the northeast side of Atlanta, and I have been wanting to go to the show for 3 years. And every time it came up, either because my aunt is in Athens, so you're only talking an hour, either it happened just before we got to Aunt Jones or just after we left Aunt Jones or something. And the trek is to the point that's not roadworthy enough to go 4 hours, spend a week, come back and do a trip, so I can't make it on my own. So it's like, okay, you know what? They're offering a carpool. I have that reason. I want to scope it out because eventually the guys from the club starting to get a modular subgroup up and going. We want to set up at that show, and if it's worth going back to, me and some of the guys want to go back, maybe even sell at that or take the 4x6 over there, sort of deal. So we went. It was, like I said, the video will be up, but it was absolutely fantastic. I mean, the flyer said 300 tables. There was 300 tables. There's a good amount of layouts set up, including absolutely. And I didn't get the whole thing, but I got of the HO modular group because this guy's work, the work of some of these modules that some of these gentlemen did is absolutely incredible. It's outstanding. So I did get that as a clip, got that as a layout, walk around. But even at that, this space was probably just right at about only a third full. I mean, there was a huge area of empty floor, and it was big enough you could have taken a 20 by 40 modular layout and plunked in the middle of that and still had 10 foot all the way around the thing. The space is absolutely ginormous. The show was huge, and I asked the gentlemen that were organizing it, which partially funded by the Peach Creek division of NMRA, and they said this was actually only half because, COVID. They had a lot of vendors that were just now starting to come back. So it's like, oh, and I have not seen such an diverse stock of new old stock, undecorated, just sheer variety in a really, really, really long time. I mean, guys that had detail parts. There must have been 3 or 4 different guys each that had 20 foot of tables, and it was nothing but, photos, postcards, timetables, memorabilia, lanterns, china, all this other stuff. It was a phenomenally well done show. Absolutely worth going back to. It was fantastic. So I, of course, had to get me a few things. The things I actually got from there are, one of them is not here, it's at the club, but so I got 3 things from the show. I'm looping purchases from a couple of places. The first thing I got was a blue box Rio Grande SD50. And if you're wondering why you're modeling the steam area, this is really out of character. Yes, but not for the reason. Yes, purely from that standpoint, but no for the purpose I'm using it for. So again, the Union Pacific Cold Drag I am working on replicating a power set I saw in an actual photo. And the third engine in that consists, because it's a Union Pacific -9, a Southern Pacific -9, and then the third engine in that consist is a Rio Grande SD50. And yes, this is a 06 photo, so no graffiti. The thing is patched. I don't think it's even patched. I think it's still just Rio Grande with UP reporting marks, but no giant patch outs or anything like that. And I had been looking for a SD50 at a decent price, train shows, eBay, everywhere else for about 5 months now, and I can't find it. Guy had a whole bunch of these. They ran pretty well. They look good. $50. They're blue box, really easy to work on. And I was like, okay, fine. I'm already fudging on a couple other things. I'll get this and nothing else. It can be a stand-in until I actually find an SD50. So that was the reason behind that. So the caboose, ironically enough, this has been hovering around train shows for a long time. One of the gentlemen that was selling, he comes to Birmingham fairly often, so I've seen it at Birmingham at both of the shows last year and at the fall show the year before that. So this caboose has been sitting there and sitting there and sitting there. I always figured somebody else would get it. And I was feeling like, okay, this is ridiculous. Fine, I will give myself one splurge purchase this show. And maybe this is supposed to be whatever. So I went ahead and grabbed it. It is not a Tenshindo. I try to remember the name of the company. It's like Lone Star Models, something like that. I highly, highly doubt they're in business anymore. But it is a brass caboose. In pretty good shape. Robert has had it in the collection. He's never ran it, but everything on it, the wheels and everything else looks really good. I had to glue one thing back, the ladder on the end. But that was because it was broke at the show. It's because it broke in transit. It was already loose and it kind of went. So I've had to re-glue that, but I mean, it's brass, which I'm becoming a sucker for. It's Union Pacific. Like, it's hit me from all three sides, so I just, like, okay, fine. That's the reason behind that. The third item I got at the show, this is going to be the first of more, hopefully. I mentioned this earlier. 3 Atlas 70-ton 9-panel ribbed hoppers. So just a quick background note on as to why I'm doing this. Part of it, like I said earlier, is I had all these kits built up, and I realized, you know what? I don't want to spend the next 20 years getting around the kits and not getting anything done on the layout or getting the fleet for the Hawking put together, especially since most of the engines, to be accurate, I gotta get brass locomotives and then have a guy I found do like a mountain worth of modifications, then sound and then paint and weather and everything else. Like, I want to actually get this layout to a state of scenery, not spend the next 20 years fiddling with equipment. Not that I don't mind, but hey, I want to have a layout with scenery on it. Go figure. So, and they're all different shades, so it's going to be completely stripped down. And I just realized, wait a minute. The real cars were delivered with 11 panels ribbed by Bethlehem Car in 1920. However, 3 years later, and a couple of railroads got this car type, they were experiencing acid corrosion problems from the acid in the coal, in high sulfur coal. So they got rebuilt. And again, since I pro freelance and Hawking, and wait a minute, these things got delivered in 1920. By 1950, they're going to be getting problems. Gee, the Atlas 70-ton cars are actually a hair longer, arched ends, higher capacity. I'm in Ohio. What was the trend in the area? Because you remember John Armstrong and Al McClellan both said the key to realism is the mundane, all what's around you, and that's how you make a freelance or a pro freelance seem really realistic. It's like, what's around us? Okay, one of the common denominators, ribbed hoppers, 70-ton, and arched ends.
Jacob.
So, a little bit of an interruption. Anyways, the long and short of it, I just realized it's going to be a lot easier and hence actually attainable to just go with something that requires a minimal amount of work. And since I don't have to strip these as far as paint, just decals, I don't have to worry about breaking off a bunch of art detailing like I did with the Athearn C and EI. Like, there's one of them sitting here. Like with these. If I tried to strip these and paint the black, I mean, look, you got the grab irons and everything else on there, which, well, there you go. I love the detail on these things. I love them. But realistically, I'm going to breaking half that stuff off. These, it's there, but I mean, it's thicker. It's molded on, but it's not molded flat. Grab irons, and it's already black. So I figure, okay, this is real easy. As long as I get them either black or whatever shade of Tuscan that is. This is going to be real simple. And the other bit of it, the last version of this layout, I had 2 yards because basically I was modeling Logan. So I had on my layout, the original yard next to the engine terminal survived. I never got around to putting it in, but I was going to put an engine terminal on there. And they use that for coal. They use their one for freight. I've got 1 yard on here, and I'm going to have a coal track, scale track / storage track, drop-off track, and 2 general freight tracks. Which means on this version of layout, I don't have enough storage space to send out an entire train. Considering train length for here is 10 cars articulated in a caboose. So that means putting it in and out of run-through trains, which means a couple of cars at a time. Total, I only need like 20 hoppers instead of 70. So just for those reasons, it was like, yeah, I think it's best to start selling them off. So I picked these up at the show, and like I said, variety. I have not seen cars at a show, especially around Birmingham or Nashville for RF&P, Richmond, Fredericksburg, and Potomac in a really long time because, I mean, you're southeast. Everything around here is NW, Southern, etc., etc. And then, of course, those I got off of Facebook. I just haven't had a chance to show them, along with a Kadee hopper that is already pre-weathered. And I tell you what, I love my Kadee cars, and this is the reason. Just the sheer amount of fine wire detailing on these cars is, I mean, it's unbelievable. I love it. And I'm swapping out some of the less detailed cars for more Kadee, Intermountain, Fox Valley, all really, really nice stuff. I did have to do a couple things. These came with the split couplers that split apart and then they don't want to close, so replaced couplers on all these with Kadees. Got everything up to height, and then, like I mentioned earlier, eventually couple axles per car, one on each truck, I'm going to have to replace with a 10 ohm resistor wheel set for the signaling, for the block detection. So anyways, that's the purchases I got from Atlanta and whatnot. That will pretty much do it for here. We've done a little bit of underneath. The big thing I'm pushing at now is backdrop. So again, 2024 coming up. The layout runs around the main line. Again, I want to have that in over there. Not all the building foundations in place. I'm not worried about that as much as I am. I'll have it planned for them, but I ain't worried as much about that as I am about, I just want a couple service tracks in, the turntable, and the rad house. So again, if we're swapping engines, we can store them there, and meaning we don't have to pick them up, walk them all around, put them in the case, and you're doing that a whole bunch of times, and you're just asking for a potential for something to fall on the floor. I will put them in there normally because, again, the idea of these is during operating sessions when the engine doesn't come onto the layout for a while, instead of disconnecting the tender, putting it in the box, and reconnecting and putting all that wear on the little JST plug, just stick it in the display case. And then, of course, the other one will have what's in the top one now, a bunch of the Union Pacific stuff and whatnot. But for 2024, that's the main thing I'm thinking about, is 2024 SEER convention in March of next year. Get ready for that. So get that in, hence the module. Main line's running, so that's good. And then the other big thing with that is, obviously I'm not going to have scenery, but I would like to at least, I mean, this would be really, really nice to at least be able to say I have all the backdrop up all the way around the room, and I have all the valence up all the way around the room. So it's into January. It's not quite to the point around here where it's like in the 60s and 70s every single weekend, so I can be out there. You know, it's getting dark at 8 o'clock, so I can go out there at 6 for a couple hours and work on stuff. Got a real nice weekend coming up, so I'll do something, but we're kind of in that end of January, beginning of February. Around here, that means it just rains a lot. And it's miserable more or less for about a month. But after we get past that, it warms up and it gets to be real nice outside. So that's the deadline I'm working towards here. The other thing that's sapping a lot of time is we are trying to have the new layout at the museum ready to go for the school field trips this year, at least in the sense of the main line is up and running and something is running around the layout. We ain't gonna have anything beyond that. Ain't gonna have any the branch in or any of the main classification yard or spurs or anything else, but we are gonna have the main and the staging yard. So getting that in late, obviously get it all wired up, and that's a deadline in and of itself. So that's been sucking a lot. But anyways, again, sorry this is a little overdue. Layout dates are probably going to be stretched like this. Not much I can do about it. But thank you for the continuing subscriptions. Thank you to all the new subscribers. I can't remember your names, but I have been getting some. I appreciate it. Thanks for continuing watching. Comments when you leave them. Always love hearing from you guys. You know the drill. Comment, like, subscribe, hit that bell icon so you get notified by the YouTube algorithm when I upload a video. And as always, take care. God bless. And yeah, I'll see y'all on the next one. All right, y'all. Just thought I'd throw this clip in. A little update on the NARM museum layout. So we are going to make the deadline for the school field trips. We won't have anything other than the main in, but yeah. So I'll go ahead and start on this corner. I had gotten some free wood that we tried using here. It was just too flimsy. So we're coming back through and fixing a couple of things. One, we are redoing the plywood through here, so we got a new piece for this. This is a slide out section. We're going to have a second level above it, which is going to go about where this is. And then Rich went ahead because this curve came out and the straight came out way too narrow, so he went in and cut this piece. You can see we still got to trim it because right there is our section joint. And then redo some of the risers because a bunch of them split on us. You kind of see there. So redo those. Relay that piece is Canaan and ready to go. And then of course it loops around. And we're going to have a big old wood trestle that was donated sit right here. And then it's going to curve back through a 26 radius right across about where this is. And then across here and down that straight shot. So Rich has been doing this rear corner over here, working on getting all that. And while he has been doing that, I will go ahead and staging yard. We'll go ahead and move over here, try and not make y'all camera dizzy. I have been focusing over here. So the thing I did today was I finished about where the level is. I finished setting the grade all the way around. Rich had it to about there. So I went ahead and made some more risers. We've got, you can see the splice plate right there. And then I set the grade all the way, the rest of the way around. So the idea is once it crosses right here, which has 4 1/4 inches of clearance, so plenty for HO scale, and then some. It is going to start, and we're going to trim this back a little bit, so probably cut it about where the riser is right there. But basically the whole length is going to be a real gradual curve, double track main, and then it's going to be a real gradual straight like that, maybe a bit of a curve to the right, and then it'll connect into that. So that's what we're going to focus on getting running in time for school field trips, which we will. Eventually we're going to have a stub into track here, tie in, and then a branch split off, come around and up here. The next stage, what we're going to do now that that is in, the next step is come doing track work. So we've gone ahead and marked where these are going to go. This number 6 is going to go right there to get to track 3 and track 4. But the next idea is to come through, go ahead and do our holes for the tortoises, finish staging yard, cork and track, and lay the main basically up the loop all the way around and whatnot. We will have a number 8 turnout in here because your inner track is your main, your outer comes around, and it will be a siding. Originally we were going to have a double-ended yard over here, so that would have been the switch lead, but at this point it's going to be a siding, so we'll have one big lat siding. But that's pretty much where it is up to date for now. So yeah, anyways, thought I'd throw that in. More to come.